we're moving. Hey, we're moving. We're not playing. We're moving. Yeah, so good evening, good people. We're moving. Hey, we're moving. Hey, we're moving. Hey, we're moving. No one is going to fight us. We're moving. We're here deliberately and we're moving under the capacity of the political school, the EFF Student Command Political School. Political education, which is very much important. That is what we're going to discuss as a whole to cover the whole majority of the TUT of the Tshwane University of Technology students. That as we engage thoroughly on this political education, it is important to know that this political education, it is important. Now, as we begin, we're going to underline the following. First, before we understand politics and before we engage ourselves into politics, we must first understand one thing. One thing. We must know the history of the educational system. Where is the educational system coming from? Ipuma. Ipumale. Ipumale. Ipuma. We must study that. As we look into where is the educational system coming from? Where is it coming from? And why are we taught under the law of the educational system? Students, wake up! We're moving. So now, as we look at the history of the educational system, we must first understand how was the educational system introduced. We are looking at, first we must go back to the 16th, if I'm not mistaken, to the 14th century. We're going back to the 14th century, where a serious colonization has taken place. We look at first at Vasco da Gama. He came, this person called Vasco da Gama. He came. Vasco da Gama came with his people. But you must understand that before they colonized this, as you can see, the green land of our people, before they colonized Bukoni, which is Africa. We hate the word Africa because it belongs to a very racist person that we do not want to discuss. In fact, we're going to discuss him. Is Afrikaners. Afrikaners is this person. That's his name. That's why they named us Africa. But that is not the issue. As we focus on to the real issue, Vasco da Gama came. We fought them, Taran. But as we look, Vasco da Gama is one of the people that were recorded to come into our land in Africa. They came in our land. There were certain wars that engaged our people. Then we recorded the second one, which was Jan van Riebeeck. He came along the 16th century, 1652. He came. Those people came. They were carrying troops. In fact, they were not carrying troops. They were coming with troops. They came with troops. Then they came with missionaries. They came with missionaries. Those missionaries, they did nothing at all. They colonized our people because first we shared. There was a certain trade that happened along with these evil people. But these evil people seemingly, which is capitalism, which they evolved into capitalism, they deliberately decided to take over. Instead of giving them bit by bit, they took all. And when they took all, because we had to fight back, we fought. No, 1997 and 2000 all the way to now must tell you that our forefathers never fought. We fought them thoroughly. We fought them. Unfortunately, they were able to dismantle us. So which means our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers, they were killed. A genocide was performed amongst them, which means an identity was wiped out. The generation that was born from if I'm not mistaken, from the 19th century, was already the generation that had already developed into the Western civilization, I should say. So that generation gave birth to a generation that's going to adopt the civilization, the Western civilization, right? So as we look into that, so a whole identity was wiped out. So in the 19th century, an educational system was really introduced in our people in Bukoni, Africa. I hate the word Africa. We rather use Bukoni because we are people of peace. So when a whole identity was wiped out in 1900, an educational system was introduced because the Dutch, the Englishmen, their colonization did not just come with they are going to take our land and take our resources and leave us like that. No, these people actually took our land and controlled us. But in order to control us, they gave us an educational system. We are still tackling the history of the educational system. They gave us the educational system. That educational system, which was recognized by the South African population, if I'm not mistaken, it was called the Bantu educational system. That Bantu educational system, mind you, it was an upgrade from what already was being fed to us. So basically, when you look at the 19th century, when that education was introduced, that education deliberately was taking the oppressed to become slaves, but not slaves those who are going to dig this time. This time they are going to be slaves who are going to be more, they have books, they are working in the office. These are slaves that enjoy slavery. But before they had to do that, before they did that, they had to educate you. They had to put you in a class. Why am I saying this? We are going back to 1940, around 1940, the educational system was now fully introduced. We had universities, we had schools. Schools, you find other comrades, they say, hey, like the likes of, there are many of them. Robert Sibukwe, our leaders, they went to schools such as, you call it Catholic Church School. It's a missionary school. Those were the schools that were deliberately given to our people. Those schools, ne, those schools, they had a reason. Their reason was to educate our people this, to teach Bukoni about their the reason of those universities and schools to be implemented was to separate the people of Africa, Bukoni, separate the people of Africa, right? That education was given to them so that they are separating the people of Africa from what they know. They gave it to separate the people of Africa from what they know, so that they do not know, and they give them what they know. So that the educational system's main purpose was to instill hate, was to instill hate, was to instill hate on white people hating black people. That educational system was educating white people to hate black people and to make them superior than black people. And at the same time, it was educating black people to love being a white person or people, to love their culture and to contribute to their culture. So universities and schools were now and are still educating a large majority of black people to contribute into the white religious aspects to their society and to their community and to their system. So this deliberately forced a distanced black from black, which gave birth to the most amazing philosophy of Steve Biko, of the Black Conscious Movement. The Black Conscious Movement. The Black Conscious Movement, it was developed so that a black person can realize his true potential. That if a black person realizes that he or she can love themselves and appreciate who he or she is, and if a black person knows his or her history, and if a black person would also agree to be black. So the Black Conscious Movement of Bantu Steve Biko, along with the people of Bokoni was based on teaching black people on how to love themselves, because the universities and schools were working against the love of black people for themselves, because the universities and schools were teaching black people not to love themselves. That is why that is why the Black Conscious Movement was developed. We must understand this concept of consciousness. Consciousness is to be aware. Aware. If you're not aware, you're unconscious. So it is clear that black people already by 1940 to 1960, they were disconnected from their culture and their identity. Therefore, they were seeking to be in a Western, a white person's a tradition. It is not by fault that they love church, but that is not the issue. The real issue is what we are focusing on. So we have two steps. The first step was to, it came with Jan van Riebeck when he came in 1652, when he came with missionaries and troops, when they wiped out a whole identity. They colonized. That's what colonization means. You are wiping out a whole identity. They wiped out a whole identity. And then the second phase was to teach a new identity, was to bring a new identity. They brought a new identity to Africa. When they brought a new identity to Africa, this caused a real issue. It created an unconscious Africa that does not know where he or she comes from. So now that we understand education, where it comes from, we are moving. We are moving. In the minute it's clear. We are going to the history of university. The history of university. Let's look at university. While around the 17th century, as we have spoken, as universities and the way of civilization of industrialization in their minds, it started in Europe. While around the 17th century, there was a teacher from Europe. That teacher had succeeded his chemistry professor. That teacher took a speech to say that uh, science was not important than chemistry. The professor said chemistry was more important than science. Matter of fact, it must combine. That's the history of university. As we look, the intention of universities. University it was created to teach by demonstrating, right? Universities, it's a community whereby creation takes place. Creation takes place. Right now, you have a majority of students of duty. They are climbing buses. They are not creating buses. They are climbing buses. They are not creating buses. Which means now you have an educational system that teaches people how to work for creation, not to create. They are not creating these people, they're upgrading. So that is not creation. Creation is when normally we create from scratch, but we acknowledge what has been created first. As we move along, the intention of university during the 19th century, chemistry was to be banned from the educational system, which means chemistry became a practical subject. It was not necessarily theory. If there was theory was the one that was found in creation. Just like when you do things, like you do not read how you are going to do something. Let's just put it like this, comrades, because we have to move along. This is a political class. You must understand everything. I quote these words from Vatu, big boy, from the EFF student command of the TT Rand. He said that our mothers and our grandmothers and fathers and our grandfathers, when they taught us how to kill a lion, they did not read books, long books and stories saying, hey, before you kill a lion, you must jump. Before you kill a lion, you must go down. No, they did not do that. No, they did not do that. Matter of fact, they would walk with us to go to the bush. We'll go there to the bush. When we get to the bush, he would somehow say, son, you see that lion? Yes, Papa. Go get it. Go get it. But before you do, remember, use your mind. That son will go there and he will grapple with the lion. He will grapple. That father by that time is watching, also learning new technique. What is the son doing? Oh, these are numerous. So it deliberately tells you that practicals, they are more important compared to theory. If you were to teach people theory more than practicals, then you'll have people who, you have too many professors. You would have too many professors, too many professors, too many professors. And we need more technicians. We need people who are more technicals, who can create. We need creation. We need creation. Professors, they can write what we have created. There is not an issue. They can record it or they can research, because we know science is all about researching. And we're fighting that because we want to research on what we have basically created. We cannot keep on researching on things that they have been created. Yes, we can, but we cannot do it continuously and depend on, and let alone let our creativity depend on that. Right? So that was the intention of the university. So before also we move along, you must know the difference between weight. Now, the reason why chemistry was to be banned in universities was because it was there was a lot of reasoning to it. One of the reasons was that there was power and status, there was competence, and there was influence, and there was position, and there was salaries, and there was career opportunities. This is what happens. You have more professors getting job than more people doing the work getting jobs, because in reality they are not getting jobs, they are creating jobs. So there was a balance. Science was more taking a role of going to jobs, staying in the office, researching what has already been done, researching that we breathe 10 times a day. Of course, we know that everyone who would research would come down to one conclusion, that we breathe 10 times a day. So science was going through that route. Chemistry was going through the route of creating jobs, creating jobs, creating jobs. So not necessarily creating jobs, but it was creating more designs. It was contributing to the society than it was working for the society. There's always a difference between working for the society and contributing to the society. One must know that. So the people who were occupying the positions during that time, they were the people who were, the professors. They had studied in these universities of science, they have researched, they have what, they stay in these offices. So when people who create offices came along, they became a danger. They imposed a danger. Hence, a technician, a person that creates, they wouldn't create that thing for too long. If they create and they teach others to create, others will create more. And then it deliberately makes them, which there's no need for them to create that. They have to create another thing else. So the science route took the route that a person can stay in an office for 12 years, doing one thing, what I'm doing now. Yeah, you must know that looking at decisions made by the grade 12 learners when they decided not to go to school. That was a research done in 1992. And I still hold my professor account, my professor degree, to say that I am the one. When you ask yourselves that, what have professors done to contribute to the society? Have they created another Colgate? Now we move along. The difference between science and chemistry. Science disciplines are more homogeneous, all right? They compromise different subjects with each having its own culture, norms, and it pursues its own program, which makes its students to respond in different ways and styles. Science education is collective but competitive. So now, this is very much deliberate forces that it is important. Science. Science alone, as you look at it, it's different, but it's aiming at one thing. How is that? There are a lot of, for an example, let's just go to mere subjects. The subjects of science, of course. We first start with maths. Okay, let's just start with maths. Maths alone, it has its own culture, it has its own norms, and it has its own thingy, its own programs, its own subjects, its own culture right on the side. Then you have physics. Physics has its own culture, has its own norms, has its own doing, has its own project there. Then you have business studies. Business studies has its own norms, has its own culture, has its own what. Then you have natural science. And then you have, let's just say tourism. Tourism has its own norms, has its own culture, has its own theory. So now, as you can see, that since all those things that are different, that's why you have this thing in science that a doctor has his or her own culture, right? And their own norms. They have their own culture, right? And the lawyers have their own culture, right? And also you have what? You have the agricultural students. They have their own culture. That is why you find others and say, "Ooh, he walks like a doctor." Ooh, he walks like a policeman. Right? So, all of these subjects compromised all together. They are aimed at benefiting one society. Right? So, let's get to the real cake now. You have doctors there, you have agricultural students there. Let's start with doctors. Why am I saying they are competing? But they are competing for, they all want to heal people, but they are competing who should heal people first. You have different medications made for one purpose, but they are competing with one another. You have Panado and Grandpa. They all serve one purpose. But because they all want to get the fair share of the market, because all of them, they want to get the fair share of the market, then they are running to get to the people first, which makes it possible that we have two types of water right now. We have the water that we get from halalo, and then we have the water that we have to buy. But initially, we're still not sure which one is healed. But that's not an issue. As we move along, it is your undying love as a student to research thoroughly. We're just going to give you some glimpse on the understanding of politics, which is political education. It is important. Do research. We're moving. Now we enter the role of the EFF Student Command. 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 Mind you, that the EFF Student Command is inspired by the June 16 movement, but we are going to put it broader. It is inspired by student movements. Student movements. which means students have been changing the world, and it is a must that they must do it now, or it's now or never. So as we look at the role of the EFF Student Command, students, it is important. Now, the role of a student in the EFF Student Command is to be a conscious student, a conscious student, a Black conscious student, a student that understands the necessity of our liberation, and a student that understands that we must unite by any means necessary, and a student that understands that we must have undying love for our people. Undying love for our people. Undying love for our people. So it is important that before you engage yourselves in politics, in any other politics, you must first be a conscious student. It will help you to make decisive decisions when you have to lead and help govern your people. So, your role as a student in the EFF Student Command is to study the conscious movements of the Black conscious movement, is to study the movements and the philosophies of the Black conscious movement. There is no way that you can entertain politics of the EFF Student Command unless you do not know the philosophies of the Black conscious movement, let alone Fanonin or Marxist or Leninist. We are out to have the deliverance to know these philosophies, because these are the philosophies that are used and are still to be used to liberate our people. So as an EFF Student Command member, you must study and implement the philosophies of the Black conscious movement, and you must have undying love for your people. As we move along, number 2 is to understand our non-negotiable pillars of the EFF Student Command. We have non-negotiable pillars that govern us as the Student Command. First, number 1, mobilize students. Hey, mobilize students. Students must be mobilized. Mobilize students. Why? Why must you mobilize students? Why must you mobilize students? You mobilize students to decolonize the mentality of white supremacy. You mobilize students under the banner of decolonizing education that does not stand for your people. And remember, before you mobilize, you must, that's why number 1, we've said you must study the conscious movement. You must be a conscious student who's aware of what the society is doing to your people. Do not come here with your individual task in university and say that, hey, me, I'm here for my mother and my father and my kids alone. What about other people? Why must you be selfish? And why must we be happy? Why must we be happy when we allow you to be selfish with the history of our people? When you know the history of your people, it is your undying passion to educate your people, because that is one of the ways to mobilize our people. Number 2, now I'm still on number 1. Why are we mobilizing our people? Why are we mobilizing students? We are mobilizing students behind the struggle of the economic freedom. The economic freedom embodied in the EFF manifesto. We're moving. Number 2 is to pursue a radical higher education transformation with an aim towards free, quality, and a well-resourced education. Free, quality, and a well-resourced education. That is important, that is important, that will ever remain important, that will forever remain important. That is very much important, that is very much important. That we must transform this educational system. But before you transform something, you must know something about it. It has been proven that when you do not know maths, it's because you are not studying maths. You do not know maths because you are not studying maths. It is clear. We are moving. As we get now, now, please look at page 14 of the EFF Student Command Constitution. Look at page 14, study it thoroughly. I will go further on it on our next political class, on our next online political class. As we're moving, we're not stopping. There's no time. Now, please look at page 14 and thoroughly look at page 13. As we enter now onto the section 4, if I'm not mistaken. What is the EFF Student Command? Is a radical, and militant. Hey, militant. Militant. A radical and militant student economic emancipation movement. It's a movement. It's a movement which brings together student revolutionaries. So, EFF Student Command, it's a militant and a radical revolutionary party that brings all together, that are fighting for one common identity, the liberation of our land. Now, it says now that political power without economic emancipation is useless. Nothing. Economic emancipation means owning what comes from the ground. Owning what comes from the ground. What comes from the ground? Oh? What comes from the ground? And controlling what goes in and out. Why are we not allowed to go, what is this thing? Huh? Why is there borders? Why are you keeping our brothers away from us when we love them so much? We're moving. Now, we draw our inspiration from, this is important, students, please now, please. But we're not going to beg you to pursue the revolution. It is important that you must. It's a compulsory. When we beg you, it's like we give you a t-shirt and we say you must go vote. Tomorrow, when we don't have a t-shirt, what are you going to tell us? No, I can't vote because my comrade a t-shirt. Why must we beg? We're not going to buy you KFC. It is your undying passion to pursue the struggle of your people. If we're going to beg you to join us to fight, very dangerous. It means even we must beg you to punch him. Hey, chief, please punch him. Please punch him. Want to go? Okay, I will punch him. But look busy. Okay, fine. Why must we beg people to pursue the revolution? Why must a slave like myself go fetch other slaves to go slaughter that slave master there? Why must you beg slaves like myself to go liberate themselves? Why must you? Now, it is important that we also understand the philosophies of Marxism. But we must understand that it is not Marxism that came with these studies. He did come with his studies. He recorded. We applaud him for that. And all our brothers, they recorded what was happening. so that we can see and how to defeat it. So which means even us, we have the opportunity to study what's happening now and create a system. That's what I'm trying to preach to you students. You are capable of creating a system of your own. A system that will contribute to the society of our people. A system that will benefit each and every living organism in this world. We're moving. So it is our undying love to know the philosophies of Marxists and Leninists, and we must also analyze their ways, which really helps us to analyze the ways of colonization and capitalism, matter of fact. And Fanonian. Fanonian is a leader, is moving. Yes, as we now conclude section 1, as an EFF student command member and a student as well, we are now discussing section 1. Go study the EFF Student Command Constitution. Go to the internet and go type EFF Student Command Constitution. You will find it. Or go to relevant student groups or associate yourself. It is necessary for you to learn politics. Section 1. The logo and colors of the EFF Student Command. The logo and colors of the EFF Student Command. Now, let's look at the African continent. You see this one here? This is an Bukoni continent, African continent, right? The color is green. The reason they painted it green is because it represents our land, the land that has to be restored. We're not happy. The green represents the land that has to be restored. Now, this one is for the national one, but there's one for the EFF Student Command. It has, I will explain thoroughly what it has. But there's the African continent symbolizes, it symbolizes the land that has to be restored. The land that has to be restored. Oh, then we look at the books. We look at the books. The books means the use of knowledge. That we must use knowledge to decolonize what has been colonized into us, which means we must study the history of our people. Study the history of our people to understand where the war is coming from. Then you will know where you are going. Our movie. Yes, as we move along, and then we have the books are here. They are here in the EFF Student Command logo. They are here. Yeah, they are here. You will see them. Then here we have a pen in the EFF Student Command logo. That pen represents that our pen shall serve as a mark to reap the chains. The chains, it will be a mark to rip off the chains of colonization. We're moving. We're moving, there's no time. The star also it's here. You see here. The star represents the character of the EFF revolutionaries. Hey, the character, we are stars. The star represents the character of the EFF. We're moving thoroughly. The star represents the character of the EFF and the necessity to restore our people all together. There must be no borders. We are together in this thing. When they fight us, they don't fight us with borders. They fight us, all of us. So that's why we must move, all of us. We are moving. Our moving. Yes. And the international solidarity, it also engages on that. If I missed something, it is your duty now to go to the EFF Student Command Constitution and study it from page to page. Because on our next political class, we're moving and you don't want to be left behind. We're moving. So, and also look at section 4, the cardinal pillars of the EFF. Section 4, the cardinal pillars of the EFF. First, we're not going to negotiate these cardinal pillars. We're not negotiating anything here. Number one, the expropriation of land. We don't have land. The only people that have land, they have it on documents. And if you have it here, they can take this thing. Then what do you have? No, 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 no. My paper was here. They forced my signature. They don't have land. If you think you have land, why do you need to go administer your land somewhere? Like it's an office, it's your land. Why must you have a barcode? That's why we must fetch our land, number one. And when we get our land, we're solving almost everything because it's our land, which means everything that comes underground belongs to us, which means even us, because we're from ground and we're going background. So we're moving. Number two, the nationalization of mines, which is important. When we nationalize mines, it means it is important for us that the mines benefit our people. They benefit our people first. Africa. Bukoni, Bukoni, Bukoni. They represent Bukoni. They benefit Bukoni first. The whole of this green land, they benefited first. We nationalize everything. Three, building of state. We are building a state that belongs to the Bukoni. We're not going to get people who don't even know to come and chair a revolution that they don't even know. That we can't even recognize them. Where were you? It's like that thinking that is that one of like he just mushroomed, he just came out of nowhere. They said, where is that comrade? He just came. So that's how they do it. We do not want to be led by people who just came. They just came. No, you can't come. You must have a record of a revolution. Whether in secret, it must be there. Even in secret, there's a revolution. So we are going to build a state that is governed by its own people. Bukoni must govern Bukoni. We cannot be governed in the UN. Why are we governed in the UN? Those people are not staying here, Mos. You tell me they have an ambassador here. Only 2 people are staying there. You telling me those people are staying? They are not staying here. Therefore, they cannot govern us here. If there's anyone that must govern anyone in his house, it's someone that stays in his house or in her house. Not Makelwane coming here at Obiamolao in our Bukoni country. And 4, free quality education. Free quality education. When we say free quality education, we mean the education that makes you contribute to the society. You are contributing. You are not being in a competition to contribute. Everyone has a role, like a battery. It's positive and negative. It's not positive and positive. Therefore, they cannot be any energy. Nothing can move there. So we must focus on an educational system that focuses on balance, role. Every human being has a role to play in the society. So long we don't have that educational system that exists, whereby we are taught to play other people's roles. Securities, they are doctors. Doctors are securities. Teachers are doctors. Doctors are teachers. Eh? Everyone is confused. Everyone is where they shouldn't be. We do not want that. So the revolution continues, a luta continua. We're moving. Industrial, number 5, industrial development, which is important. Industrial development, which is important. Industrial development covers that we must build an industrialization that benefits our people. We must remember that everything that we are about to do and something that we have to do is to benefit our people, which is Bukoni. Don't be selfish and say, hey, must benefit us. No, as you. The liberation of South Africa alone is useless. If Nigeria, if Mozambique, if Namibia, if Swaziland, if all of these 53 countries, Libya and Morocco and Madagascar, they are not liberated, then it is useless. We are so marked. Believe me, it's like in a family of 5 siblings. If one sibling gets to be a successful, what are the chances of the 4 siblings becoming successful? Less. So therefore, it is important for us to liberate all the 5 siblings for us to have a revolution. As we move along, number 6, the African economy. We must build the African economy. And one Africa, one race, one religion, one military, one currency, one everything. Not this thing of the African UN. What is that? What is that? Huh? No, we cannot allow that. We cannot allow such administrations that have been taken care of. Even the mere African youth does not know the people who are behind, doesn't know the people who are behind the African Union. But those people somehow they are leading. You see now, it becomes deliberate. Is a leader supposed to go to the people, or is the people supposed to go to the leader? Which one must go to the leader? Which one? Which one? Number one, they must meet each other halfway. Right? Number one, they must meet each other halfway. And if that fails, that they meet each other halfway. Number two, a leader must go to the people, must be present to the people. A leader who's unpresent to the people becomes an enemy to the people. A leader who is unpresent to the people becomes an enemy to the people. A leader who is unpresent to the people becomes an enemy to the people. A leader who is unpresent to the people becomes an enemy to the people. Therefore, how can you have an African Union that governs the whole of Bukuni? But a lot, like right now, the timber is being taken out of Tongo. No one is doing anything about it. The Asians, bayazenzela ngetimber. Drugs are pouring in Africa. We don't know where they enter, Atlantic Ocean or the other ocean. We don't know, but they enter. We just find them here. Then they blame a person who's going to sell it. Who supplied it? We're moving. Number 7, accountability. Leaders must have accountability. Accountability is very something important. You take something, who took it? I took it. There's no need for us to open a case and investigate. You see how much time you saved? Why must we investigate you for a case? Why? And why must others put others on a case? Because they want to character assassinate them. Section 10. Section 10 of the EFF Student Command serves as number 1. I'm going to just give you number 1. Study the conscious movements. Study the Black conscious movements and educate your people about the Black conscious movement. Not the Black conscious movement, a whole Black conscious movement. Before you teach others, you must study first. Do not bring people in the revolution. Oh, comrade, take cold drink, join us. Then when you don't have a cold drink, what happens? We must run to Makula shop. Hey, my friend, what do you want now? Here you've been buying too many cold drinks. What is your problem? No, we cannot allow that. That is wrong. We must be able to give people knowledge of politics. Knowledge is something you can never buy. You're right, my friend. We can never buy knowledge that is from the thinking of the thinking. We're moving. All right. Now, as we finish along now. Oh, actually, that was all right. That was the end of our session of our political education. Students, remember that it is your responsibility to study the history of your people and educate your people. Study the history of your people and educate your people. Our greatest goal right now is to first liberate our people in the mind so that they can first start loving themselves. First, they must first appreciate themselves. That is why it is not it's a problem, because we have to start making people to love their hair first. Make people to love their body, because make people love their teeth, make people love the color of their skin first. Hey, because they are fighting against themselves. So as a oppressed human being, it is your undying passion to study the history of your people, because the system is not telling us anything about the history of our people. It's lying to us. So that is why we are out to learn. It's lying to us, and we must not believe it, as we are not believing what they are telling us, because we know it's a lie. Aren't we tired of the lies? If we are tired, let's go study the history of our people, so that we have the undying love of our people. First, let's have undying love for our people. Now, progressive forces, I agree that we're moving. So now, the resolution. Students, how do you continue the revolution? I want to give you a solution, because we cannot talk and then there's no solution. The solution is that, since let's say you are a student, Shem, you are a first year or a second year, you don't know nothing about politics, all you had was stay away from politics unless you'll be here in campus forever and ever. Oh, ngwana ka tlhokana le dipolitiki. Or you're a third year student, you've stayed away from politics, you've been studying so much so that you never get out of, so that you don't break university rules, so that you don't need help from comrades. What can you do since you had all of this information? What can you do? One simple thing. The first thing that you can do right now. First, you open your phone or you go wherever where you want to go, where you can search for information. You go first, look into the history of your people from 1990. No, from 1900. Study it. And after studying it, find out for yourself. Then after finding out for yourself, go, do not be selfish. Go tell the people of what you found out and conclude. We're moving.